Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I have a very special one for you today. I am super excited to be talking with the Jack Watson from Brosridebikes. Welcome to the channel.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me, Jeff. I'm excited to be here.
Dude, I've been following you guys forever, and we have an exciting one to talk about today. This is U.S. Nationals 15 to 16 Criterium Championships. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, let's dive into some GoPro footage. Let's break this down. All right, so we're here at the start line. Jack, you nervous?
I had so many nerves coming into this. It was crazy.
Good lineup right at the start.
Yeah, I was the fourth person called up, so I got a front row seat, and yeah, it was a super fast start right from the gun.
So this is in Roanoke. This is different weather from Southern California. How was your prep? And you already had the road race under your belt. So tell me how that went.
Yeah, so 2 days prior was our road race, and it was so hot and humid in Roanoke, Virginia. And for me, I'm used to SoCal weather, and like 2 days before we left, it was like raining and cloudy and 50 degrees. So coming into this, I prepared for a SoCal crit, which, let me tell you, a SoCal crit is not the same as a Virginia road race. So I ended up like falling on the side of the road and kind of passing out for a second from heat exhaustion. So coming into this, I had drinking so much water, and I poured water on myself before the race, put ice down my back, and I came into this race so much more prepared than that road race.
The ice sock in the back is so key. I do that. I do that at hot races. I'm going to do that at the upcoming Intelligentsia Cup because I am the same. It must be a California guy thing, which is like my performance takes such a significant hit in the heat, and it's frustrating, right? Because you're looking at your power numbers, you're like, I should be doing 10-15% more, and you have these guys from like the Miami Blazers or some team like that who they train all year round in that sort of temperature and humidity. So you had a score to settle in this crit. Should we talk about the course? We're almost done with the first lap. It looks like there's a little hill in there, right?
Yeah, there's one like 10-second punchy climb in there on the backside of the course. So that was definitely a huge factor. Being in good position going into that was key, which I did not do a great job these first 15 minutes.
So it looks like there was a little bit of wind, maybe not much of a factor. Was it mostly, you would say, the hill? Was that the feature on the course that you were looking out for?
That was definitely the main feature. Yeah, the wind was a slight headwind into the finish straight, but it wasn't crazy.
And then you had a chat with your brother pre-race, right? Like, what was the plan for you coming in? How did you see this race unfolding? How did you envision yourself finding success? Because I think that's an important aspect of crit racing. All right, we're going to hear Jack's plan, but first, a really fast message from Element, or LMNT, the sponsor of this video. And look, Jack mentioned the heat, right? In addition to physically cooling yourself down, another thing that I really like to do every time I go out and race in the heat and humidity is to take on additional fluids. Did you know that being dehydrated by just 1% of your body mass will result in a whopping 5.8% performance decrease? We often argue over the seconds gained over 40 kilometers with the newest $10,000 flagship superbike. But what if you could save 5.8% by simply hydrating properly? That's where Element steps in. They have a scientifically backed formula of electrolytes designed to optimize your hydration. And guess what? It doesn't cost $10,000. In fact, if you click the link in the description, you'll get a free sample pack with any purchase. That is 8 single-serving packs, so you can try each flavor. So thanks, Element, for sponsoring this video. Now let's hear from Jack.
For sure. Planned pre-race, Eli interviewed me and was like, what are you thinking? How are you going into this? And I said, I am going to sit in all race. If a breakaway goes, I am not chasing it back, so be it. I'm going to be a lazy sprinter and fight for position in the final lap and hopefully sprint for a win.
So that's the other thing we should talk about is, for those who don't know, Brosridebikes and the Watson brothers, first of all, shame on you. Go follow all their socials. They have a YouTube channel. You guys have an Instagram, I imagine. You want to shout out what the Instagram is?
Yeah, Instagram is Brosridebikes.
Oh, I could have done that. That was easy. So go follow them and follow their success. These kids, I just cannot believe how successful you guys and how fast you guys are, and you're in your teens. Like I wasn't even riding bikes barely at that age, let alone racing. So go follow their socials. But the point I was getting at here is they're sprinters. Both you and your brother are fantastic sprinters, but it's not just about that pure power. It's also about being in good position for this sprint. You know, we talk about this a lot on the channel about you could have the best power in the world, but if you're not in position to pop off a good sprint, it doesn't really matter. You're not going to get a good result. So you're probably also looking at like potential splits. This looks fast. This looks single file. So you're probably also trying to move up and not get caught behind a split. Behind you looks like guys are in trouble.
Yeah, for sure. People would attack out of that final corner. It was kind of a slight, like 1% climb that finished straight. So guys would get gapped off, but then people would sit up and play games coming up here so they would be able to crawl their way back on.
Hey, I got a question for you. Do you race against these guys? Like, do you know a lot of these guys?
So the only race that I have raced against some of these guys was at Valley of the Sun in Arizona. But the good teams like Hot Tubes and EF, they actually raced up at that race. So I've never raced against them until this week.
But you knew based on like the teams, like who the strong guys were, like who to look out for. Did you have some individuals in mind, or was it just kind of like the big teams you were looking out for?
The big teams definitely were EF, Education, Onto. They had won the time trial and the road race prior to this, so they were definitely marked. And then Enzo Edmonds from Hot Tubes, he was a really good sprinter, so he was definitely marked as well.
Yeah, they show up and win like P1-2 races, and then obviously the Cannondale team's a feeder team for the World Tour team. But you guys from Southern California, you're not familiar with a lot of these riders. You know, this is something I face when I go do national level crits and road races, which is I don't know a lot of these riders. You know, you show up and like there might be a sleeper in there, somebody who like you don't realize has a monster sprint because they're just in a different district. So you always have to keep your alert on high when you're out racing, especially a big event, but outside of your district. At this point in the race, we're now a few laps in. Are nerves gone? That's how it is for me, at least. Like the nerves kind of wash away after the first couple laps. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I don't know. That first lap, I had gotten bumped like 3 or 4 times. So that definitely made the nerves a whole lot worse. And I kind of just like faded my way to the back, which was not the right spot to be. And then I heard people yell. So many people were yelling at me. They were like, "Jack, you have to move up. Jack, get off the back." And so I finally told myself like 15 minutes in, I was like, "We're moving up to the front. Let's go do this thing."
Let's fast forward a bit and see how that plays out. All right, Jack, we're 15 minutes later, like you said. You've been happily tail gunning, which is sort of a high risk, high reward situation. But man, with the hill, with how strung out this field is, it's time to move up. Tell us what you're doing here.
Yeah, so an attack just went off the front. There's 2 guys off the front right now, and someone is trying to chase it back, and EF is sitting on because they have a rider, Peyton, off the front. So they sit up because they don't want to pull the breakaway back, and so that slingshot effect, I just use all of my momentum and go. I don't even get out of the saddle. I just hold a consistent power and just hammer up, holding like 400, 450, and just try to get up to that breakaway.
I love this move, man. The slingshot, the NorCal slingshot. See, guys, it works. And I love this for a lot of reasons. I mean, one, you implemented the slingshot. You see how quickly he got past the front riders. And also that's that consistent. It's a hard effort, but it's a consistent effort. And you identified these are the teams we talked about that are threats. And you jumped right across to them, right into their wheel. This was such a fantastic move. It's a ready-made breakaway. I love this. As a sprinter myself, this is like the ideal situation. To join a breakaway, oftentimes the easiest way is you join a ready-made breakaway. Sometimes it's really hard and high risk in order to try this yourself, like go dangle off the front solo. So now you're in this group of 3. How did it play out? Like, did you guys? It looks like you're taking the front. Like you're like flying your flag here. Like, hey guys, we're gonna ride a breakaway. Was that your intention?
Yeah, so once I made it up here, I wanted to roll this thing to the finish line. So the number one spot where breakaways usually lose time is on the downhills. So I got to the front and I was like, I'm gonna hammer this downhill and really establish our gap and make sure we stay out there for a long period of time. And I knew that behind the EF riders would be closing down attacks and not letting the other riders pull us back. So that was always good, having them in the breakaway. So yeah, it was like the perfect breakaway to be established.
Yeah, it takes a lot of strength to do this, but you took, I mean, you bridged across, we saw that obviously, and then you took the front and you took that initial pull. And like I said, you have to be really strong to do that. But what that does is you are showing your brake mates like, hey, I'm committed to this. Like, let's roll. Because if you get up there and then you're like, I'm tired, hey, let me sit on for a while, that's a risky move, right? Because they're thinking like, oh, okay, we got Jack. He's a sprinter. He's gonna sit on, and it might demotivate them, and it's usually the wrong way to go. So for you to take that pull demonstrates your strength and your cycling prowess to make this work. And you guys are now in rotation. Were there skipped pulls? Like, how was the distribution of workload here on the front?
Yeah, so Peyton, after I took that first pull, he actually was like, Jack, hop in, like, and I was like, yeah, no, I just took a really hard pull. I'm not letting you skip a pull. So I made him go, and then he took this nice pull on the front, and he actually tried skipping a few more on me, and I like wouldn't take it. But the other kid behind me, I think his name is Caden, he let Peyton skip a few pulls. So, and Peyton is the reigning champ, so he's definitely like the strongest one here. He's got the biggest target on his back, so I did not want him skipping pulls.
Good call. Smart move. So let's fast forward a bit and see how this breakaway plays out. All right, so we fast forward here. We're coming through 3 laps to go. You guys have been rolling smooth. This is the point now where like you have a pretty healthy gap. What is your gap, by the way? I mean, they're out of sight. Do you know what it was?
I think it was like around 25 seconds, maybe.
Which doesn't sound like a lot, you guys, but in a crit, that's considerable. That's a long time. If you sit there and just count out 25 seconds, that's a quarter of a lap or something like that. But you guys are still working, it looks like. When did you start thinking, Jack, as a sprinter, as a member of this breakaway group containing the reigning champion, when did you start thinking like, ooh, I should skip, or maybe I should make him take a harder pull? Like, did that thought enter your mind?
Yeah, so what I was thinking was on the last lap, Peyton won from a sprint last year, so I knew he was going to be a big sprint threat. So I did not know who this Caden guy was. Post race, he came up to me and told me he could hit 1400 watts, which is crazy. I can't even hit that. So I did not know he was a sprinter. So basically we had 3 sprinters in a breakaway. So final lap, my goal was just to get on the back because 3 of us in the final corner, and it's a long sprint too. I thought I could just stay in the draft and they would burn up and I could come around. That was what was processing through my mind. I didn't really think about attacking early or skipping pulls or anything until the last lap when they started skipping and I got stuck on the front for a little bit.
And we're going to see that here in just a few minutes' time. But I totally agree. If you're ever in this position, third, last is always the best for a couple of reasons. I mean, the draft is better, but also you can see what's going on. You're not going to get surprised by a massive attack, you know? I always like being last in these small groups coming into a finish. It's not often I get to enjoy these moments as a sprinter. It's not often I get to ride in a successful breakaway. But every once in a while, a couple times this season, I was out there in Oakland, 2 years ago now, in a similar situation. And I was thinking the same thing. I was forced into position 2, but I really wanted to be in third position because that is definitely the best, especially like you said, it's a long finishing straight with a headwind. But you guys are all still, it looks like you guys are all still doing your thing, taking equal amounts of pulls. Like it usually happens quickly. Like one person skips and then somebody else is like, well, if he's skipping pulls, I'm going to skip pulls. And it usually happens pretty quickly. But even though you have 25 seconds, like you can still get caught from this distance. So this is still good news for you, right?
Yeah, for sure. I kept pulling and the first games started after we went into 1 to go. So we rolled it for a very long time without playing any games, which was amazing because in the finishing straightaway, the group was in sight. So we were definitely cutting it a little bit close.
Yeah, I've talked about this before. The ideal speed to ride a breakaway is just fast enough to stay away from the chasing peloton, but not so fast that you're going to burn up your legs for the sprint. And another thing that I was just reminded of, another little tactic you guys can employ which Jack just demonstrated, is taking the front. If you can time your pull for like a crosswind or a feature, Jack went up that climb, and I would do a little tester, especially if you're on a good day. Stand up, like do a decently hard effort, and just take a peek back. And if they're letting gaps open and they're looking tired, there's usually a good amount of body language involved in that. You kind of can sort people out, because at this point in the race, you just want to know who's who. Like, who's the guy who's fresh, who's the guy who's hurting, because it's so important, positioning and timing your attack and or your sprint, and knowing who's fresh is a big part of that. So we're approaching it. I think this is one to go now, right?
Yeah, it is.
And you're taking the front. Still's taking a pretty healthy pull here. Oh, and now I see the games behind.
Yeah, so that's when the games first start to play, and I think I flicked my elbow through here, and they didn't come around. So this was when we really started playing the games.
And your powers come down, which is smart, because you don't want to just tow these two sprinters to the line. You want to make sure that you're going to have as best chances as possible against the defending champ and another very powerful sprinter. So yeah, I mean, you're stuck on the front. That sucks, but at least you're not just riding yourself into the ground. Yeah, powers come down considerably here. You're playing with that gap, like I just talked about. You know, when you're in a breakaway, you want to go just hard enough to stay away, but not so hard. You're zigzagging across the road. Yeah, I love this. Talk us through this. Were you feeling confident in this moment?
Yeah, I mean, I did not want to be stuck on the front. It's the worst spot to be. But also, I did not want to get caught by the field, because I wanted to be on the podium. Like, third is better than last place. So we definitely wanted to stay away. So we kept checking back, and on the downhill, I think the group came in sight. Like, they were turning this top corner as we were at the bottom. So we did not want to get caught.
You're trying so hard to get off the front, and it finally works. Like taking that wide corner at 50 watts. Finally,
I took
like, okay.
I took the wide corner and slammed on my brakes, and it forced them to go around.
Now you're in third. Oh, I love the look of the. I mean, this is where I would want to be. But the problem remains: these other guys are not slouches in this sprint, and you can see heads are on a swivel. They're checking gaps. They're looking behind. Ryder on the front, smart move here. Far right-hand side of the road. You notice he's only checking over his left-hand shoulder, because nobody can attack from his right-hand side. He just doesn't want to be surprised by something. That was a weird tap. What, is he going to lead him out or something? What was that about?
I don't know what they were saying or what went down there, but he tapped him.
And now he's looking. That was pretty strange, because they're not teammates, but that was a very teammate thing to do. And now it looks like he's... Ouch. Now it looks like he's leading him out. Oh, man. And this little gap.
That was the max power I've ever hit before, and it still wasn't enough to close down that gap.
Dang, these kids are so talented. I mean, it was really unfortunate that that there was like almost a lead-out situation there at the end, because those were big numbers, you guys. Jack, how much do you weigh?
I weigh 150.
150, making that sort of power at your age, it's incredible. And I think that just that 2 bike length gap that was opened up right at the beginning of the sprint is what cost you, because if you're in their draft, a lot could have happened. You could have come around. But yeah, very interesting last lap. Amazing result on the box at Nationals. You just picked up this sport recently, at least in terms of competition, right?
Yeah, just got into it like 2 years ago, and racing really competitively like 1 year ago.
That's insane, dude. I'm so happy for you guys. I'm definitely gonna be following, continuing to be a big fan of what you guys are doing. I'm calling it right now. The Brosridebikes, the Watson brothers, are the next big thing in USA racing. So check out their socials one more time. Actually, I'm just gonna leave a link in the description for you guys to check out. Jack, so great having you on, man.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Catch you guys in the next one.